Will Russia hold the dollar's hand again? A U-turn in Putin's policy and a big signal for China. In the darkness of the night, inside a building in the Kremlin, a few papers quietly circulate. There are no headlines on those papers, no press conference. Yet the words written on them have the power to shake the entire global economy. The question is that same Russia, which in recent years had resolved to challenge the dollar, now thinking of returning to that very dollar? The fear is that if this happens, what will become of BRICS, de-dollarization, and the global power balance? The curiosity is about what kind of turn has come in Putin's strategy that could even surprise China. And this is where the story begins. A story of a possible U-turn that could change not just Russia's direction, but the course of the whole world. In 2022, when Russia began military action in Ukraine, Western countries unleashed an unprecedented wave of sanctions. Several Russian banks were removed from the SWIFT system. The foreign reserves of the Central Bank of Russia, containing billions of dollars, were frozen. It was a clear message that the dollar-dominated financial system is not just a currency system, but also a geopolitical weapon. From that moment, Putin's government accelerated de-dollarization. Russia increased trade with China in yuan, efforts were made for rupee-ruble settlement with India, and energy deals began to be conducted in alternative currencies. But now, a Bloomberg report, citing an internal memo from the Kremlin, indicates that Moscow may consider returning to dollar settlement as part of a broader economic partnership with the United States. This would not be just a policy tweak, but a strategic shift. The memo mentions 7 areas where Moscow believes its interests could align with the Trump administration, provided some agreement is reached regarding the end of the Ukraine war. Here, it is important to pause and understand what a return to the dollar system would mean. The dollar is still the backbone of global trade. Data from the IMF and the World Bank shows that around 58 to 60% of the world's foreign exchange reserves are held in dollars. Oil trade, often referred to as the petrodollar system, is largely settled in dollars. If Russia, one of the world's major energy exporters, adopts dollar settlement again, it would signal that despite sanctions, the grip of the dollar has not loosened. The areas of cooperation mentioned in the memo are themselves surprising. A long-term aviation agreement, which could include participation from American manufacturing, joint development in offshore and complex oil and LNG projects, preferential entry for US firms into the Russian consumer market, nuclear energy cooperation, including AI-linked projects, partnerships in critical minerals such as lithium, copper, nickel, and platinum, and most importantly, the restoration of dollar settlement, including in energy trade. Think about it. This is the same Russia that repeatedly said in recent years that dependence on the dollar must be reduced. Putin stated on multiple platforms that the dollar was being used as a geopolitical tool. Russia reduced the dollar's share in its national wealth fund and increased the share of yuan and gold. By 2023, a significant portion of Russia-China trade was being settled in yuan. On the Moscow exchange, yuan trading volumes reached record levels. In such a scenario, even discussing a return to the dollar system is a paradox in itself. But in geopolitics, there are no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. Sanctions did not completely collapse Russia's economy, but they certainly created pressure. Technology imports, aircraft parts, advanced semiconductors, all were affected. Chinese firms stepped in to supply many industrial components, but dependency increased. Energy exports were redirected to India and China at discounted prices. This strategy worked in the short term, but questions about long-term stability remained. The memo argues that rejoining the dollar system could bring stability to Russia's foreign exchange market. Ruble volatility could decrease. Managing balance of payment shocks could become easier. And if the US provides phased sanctions relief, the possibility of capital inflows could also increase. For America, this move would reinforce dollar dominance and counter China's growing financial influence. India's role here is interesting. India has always encouraged trade in local currencies, but has not chosen to outright reject the dollar. There was discussion about a BRICS common currency, but India remained cautious. New Delhi's strategy has been balanced within the dollar system and also with alternative mechanisms. If Russia returns to the dollar, it could increase flexibility in energy trade settlement for India, but it may also affect experiments in rupee trade. For China, this scenario is more sensitive. Beijing has been a major stakeholder in de-dollarization, yuan internationalization, the cross-border interbank payment system, belt and road financing. All have been steps toward diluting dollar dominance. If Moscow moves toward an economic thaw with Washington, subtle shifts could emerge in the Russia-China strategic alignment. However, experts believe that completely distancing from Beijing would not be easy for Moscow. After sanctions, China became a crucial supplier of industrial components and materials. Recently, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated that Russia and the US are discussing major bilateral economic deals alongside peace talks. If sanctions relief becomes part of a peace framework, the revival of dollar settlement could become a bargaining chip. But all of this remains at a hypothetical stage. Western officials caution that some proposals could be designed to create divisions between Washington and its European allies. Now the question arises, would this truly be a policy U-turn or merely a tactical maneuver? Putin's leadership is known for strategic patience and calculated moves. Russia's role in energy markets is critical. OPEC plus coordination, global oil prices, LNG flows. Moscow carries significant weight in all of these. If dollar settlement returns, global energy pricing dynamics could also be affected. Energy price differentials between the US and China could narrow, as the memo suggests. Looking at economic data, Russia maintained a current account surplus in 2023 and 2024, largely due to energy exports. However, capital controls, restricted imports, and rerouted trade routes created distortions in the economy. State intervention increased to shield domestic industry from sanctions. A shortage of dollar liquidity strengthened alternative channels, but also increased transaction costs. If dollar channels reopen, transaction efficiency could improve. This story is not just about currency. It is about the power equation. The dollar, as the global reserve currency, is also an instrument of US foreign policy. Access to SWIFT, correspondent banking, clearing systems, all provide geopolitical leverage. Russia's potential return would mean accepting that leverage, perhaps under negotiated terms. It is also possible that Moscow may adopt dollar settlement in selective sectors while continuing parallel alternative systems. In the Indian context, efforts toward rupee internationalization continue. The RBI has pushed rupee trade settlement through Offshore accounts. There has been discussion about using local currency for energy imports. But practical challenges, currency convertibility, trade imbalance, liquidity, have limited progress. If Russia returns to the dollar, India's energy import mechanism may need adjustments, but the broader diversification strategy could continue. Experts also say that Russia's economy, despite sanctions, has remained resilient because it built fiscal buffers, accumulated gold reserves, and maintained strong energy revenues. However, technology isolation may show its impact in the medium term. In the aviation sector, the shortage of Western aircraft parts, the need for advanced drilling technology, and access to AI and semiconductors, all could give the US economic leverage. If a phased detente occurs between Moscow and Washington, risk perception in global markets could shift. Oil prices could stabilize. The ruble could strengthen. Even the US dollar index could be affected. But everything will depend on moves on the geopolitical chessboard. Europe's reaction, as a major stakeholder in the Ukraine conflict, will also be crucial. It must also be noted that de-dollarization may not be completely reversed. In recent years, Russia and China have built alternative payment channels, currency swaps, and bilateral agreements. Trust dynamics do not change overnight. It is possible that Russia adopts a multi-currency approach, where the dollar, yuan, and other currencies operate side by side. That would be pragmatic realism, not an ideological shift. In this entire story, the biggest element is uncertainty. The leak of an internal memo can itself be a message. In signaling diplomacy, leaks sometimes act as negotiation tools. If Washington is being signaled that Moscow is ready for compromise, the offer of dollar settlement could become an incentive. On the other hand, Beijing may also receive a subtle message that Moscow still has options open.
If our video has taught you something new, do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources, news from various news agencies, opinion polls and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.